extremely happy to be here today and also associated with Agrinia for this lovely, event that you all have planned, which is all about kitchen garden. So today we're going to be talking about kitchen gardening. Okay, let us get into just, the understanding of a kitchen garden and how we started and how we take care of it, how we maintain these gardens, and also how we can expand our garden. So there will be a little for everyone, for the newbie gardener as well as someone who is an advanced gardener, to be able to kind of take on your gardening journey much ahead. So very simply, what is a kitchen garden? A kitchen garden is a garden or a space where you grow plants that yield fruits or leaves or flowers or seeds that are useful for your kitchen. So whatever it produces, that produce can be used in your kitchen to create this delicious dishes that all of us in India are creating, right? So and what are these items, or what are these ingredients that go into our cooking? More often than not, it is certain vegetables, it is certain herbs that we use to provide flavor. There are spices, there are also grains, pulses. So all of these are stuff that somebody is growing somewhere in some farm, right? And it's being grown there, it's being packaged, I mean, it's being cleaned and processed and packaged and being delivered to us all the way in the city. And something to understand is that many a time, the food that you are buying from a store, or the buying from a market, almost travels an average of 300 to 400 kilometers, if you are staying in a city like Bangalore, to reach your plate. If you understand the way these food miles are calculated, we are actually using a lot of energy to be able to get the food from somewhere onto our plates or in our kitchens. And the reason why this is so important is because energy goes into it, and it's also the entire idea of how sustainable are we when it comes to food. How, what is this our ecological footprint? If you people have heard about ecological footprint, what is my ecological footprint on this earth? Am I getting food from miles away? Am I using stuff that is not sustainable for the earth? So to understand what our ecological footprint is, you can understand where your food actually comes from. If you're ecologically conscious, you can actually cut down on that, your food miles or the ecological footprint that you are creating by growing your own, vegetables and fruits. So depending on the space that you have, you can, um, grow whatever is sort of fits into that space. If you have a balcony like me, you can think about growing greens and chilies and tomatoes, all of that that yields on a faster basis. So in a smaller space, you're still getting a lot of produce. And if you have a larger space, if you have a backyard, with an open area of say 1,200 or 500 square feet, you can grow a lot of different vegetables. And even in a balcony garden, if you are a little smart about it, if you are interested in going vertical, there's a lot that can be done even in a very small space to grow your own vegetables. Okay, so just before we get started into the demonstration of how we do it, there is some basic understanding that you should have about how to set up a garden itself. I mean, or how do you understand what goes into setting up a garden? So according to me, I call it the three mantras. What are these three mantras? Okay, one is light. Now, remember, we all studied in school that photosynthesis is something, is a process by which plants create food for themselves to be able to function and grow and survive, right? So one of the prime components of the photosynthetic process is sunlight. So sunlight is what plants require to grow. Now, there are plants that require a lot of sunlight. There are plants that can, manage with little sunlight. So these plants that you see behind me, these are shade-loving plants. So these are plants that can manage with about 3 to 4 hours of sunlight in a day. So they have evolved to accept lesser lights, and they have found a way in which they can grow and survive with lesser amounts of light. Typically, these are plants that in a forest you would find at the bottom of the forest floor. So right at the bottom of the forest floor, far away from the canopy. So with little amount of ambient or diffuse light, these plants can really grow and do well. The other plants which typically require between 6 to 8 hours of sunlight are flowering plants and vegetable plants. So the reason this is so is that when a plant gets a lot of input in terms of sunlight, nutrition, all of that, is when it can go on to make certain expensive parts of the plant body, like fruits and flowers. So creating a flower, creating a fruit is a little bit of an expensive thing for the plant. It uses a lot of resources. So when it's getting a lot of resources, then it can go ahead and make things like fruits, flowers and fruits, and so it's fine. So therefore, all our vegetables, have flowers and fruits. So we are eating the fruits typically, that's what we're eating, or we're eating the leafy part of the plant or the seeds or whatever it is. So all vegetables require between 6 to 8 hours of sunlight, and so do flowering plants. So you will see that a place that has a lot of flowers is always under full blown sunlight. So that's why it's growing so well, and that's why it's thriving, and that's why it's also producing the flowers. So all vegetables require 6 to 8 hours of sunlight. The only vegetables that can grow in lesser amounts of light are your gingers and turmeric. Now, ginger and turmeric also are more from tropical sort of environments, very moist and dense spaces. So they know how to grow on the forest floor. So they will grow even with little amount of light. They will grow and they will flower, and they will also produce their rhizome. And some greens can also grow in lesser amounts of light. But when we're talking about kitchen gardening, because we're talking about most vegetables and herbs and greens, we are looking at spaces that have a lot more light. And most likely all of you in Shimoga have spaces that have good amounts of light for you to get into gardening, kitchen gardening. The second mantra is water. Now, when we talk about water, yes, all plants require water. Since all of you are gardeners, you've seen the days that you don't water your plants, the plants become very droopy and dry. And if it goes on for a little longer, the plants can even die out. So water is very important. But the main thing to note here about water is that it doesn't mean that you're so, happy and you want to pamper your plants that you pour tons of water. No, you pour only the amount of water that the plant requires. So the plants take up water from their root hairs. So remember, again, we studied in school, we have the main root and we have the subsidiary roots, and the subsidiary root have further subsidiary roots, and which eventually end up in really thin hair-like roots. So those are called the root hairs. So they are the primary roots that are able to absorb moisture into the plant body. So if we are stagnating water around the root, the plant cannot take in so much of water that you give it. It can take in the amount of water only what is required by it. So it takes in moisture and or dampness. It doesn't take in tons of water. So we have to water only the amount that is required for the plant. So in a pot, so you see this pot over here. This is a typical nursery pot. Okay, but when you go to the market and buy either a plastic pot or a mud pot, you will see that it has lesser number of drainage holes. So these holes, as you can see here, so they are, in most pots you would see drainage holes already there. But if you have a pot which comes without a drainage hole, like this one, you have special slots where you can drill a hole. So all you need to do is just put a screwdriver in it, make a hole. But it's very important that container gardens especially have drainage holes. So what happens is that all the excess water, now say by mistake you put in 2 mugs of water instead of 1 mug, that second mug of water has the opportunity of coming out. But if you didn't have drainage holes, what is going to happen is going to get stagnant, at the plant's body or the roots, and eventually the roots are going to rot and the plant will die. So we don't want something where we don't want a pot which doesn't have a drainage hole where water stagnates and the plant dies. So please remember that drainage is a very, very important factor. So water is the second mantra of gardening. The third mantra is nutrition. So, nutrition is typically your compost, or, this is organic farmyard manure. So farmyard manure is made out of cow dung. Okay. And you also get goat manure, you get horse manure. Many of you may be making your own compost at home as well. So basically organic matter that has been broken down, to a more finer or powdery level, which can be used along with your soil to grow plants. So the three mantras are sunlight, water, and nutrition. Now, how often should you manure your plants? You should manure your plants. If it's a container garden, you should manure your plants at least once a month. Okay, and it's important that we ensure that we are not putting too much of manure, because again that is over pampering. So too much of manure will again result in the plant not being able to take up so much of nutrition into its plant body, and therefore what happens is that the plant gets a bit burnt out, because too much of nutrition, too much of certain nutrients burns the plant, and it will result in different sort of things. But really it depends on the kind of container you're using, how much soil and manure you have, for you to think about all these things. So we have our container. Okay. Now you have containers at home, maybe some of you who are a lot more conscious will probably have, this is a plastic jar which came with some biscuits or something like that, and we cut it into two, and now we're using this as a container. So anything, any waste item can typically become a container. I mean, you can use old buckets, you can use old mugs, you can use an old suitcase, you can even use an old bag if you just hang it onto the wall somewhere, and that typically becomes a container as well. So you have your container. Okay, sometimes our delivery boxes are also pretty good containers, because these last for an extremely long time. So if you are interested in growing some smaller plants, these delivery containers also really help. So we have our pot now. We have what we need to put into the pot. Okay, so here I have red soil. Okay, I'm sure red soil is easily found in the areas that you all live in, and probably better quality red soil as well. So red soil is mixed with manure, and that's basically what the plant requires. It requires red soil. Red soil. Now a lot of people are growing, plants with this cocoa peat. You must have heard of cocoa peat. Cocoa peat is basically coconut fiber from the coconut, and that is being powdered and compacted into these kind of blocks. It's good to use cocoa peat, but a plant cannot grow only in cocoa peat. So soil is extremely important, because apart from getting the nutrients, the important nutrients like nitrogen and all that from manure, a plant gets many micronutrients from the soil, which is silica, magnesium, calcium. All of that comes from the red soil, or the soil that is available in the regions that you all are from. So how we usually do it for container gardens is that we use around, maybe about 40% of red soil. We use 30% of farmyard manure, and we use another 30% of your cocoa peat. Why do we use cocoa peat? Okay, cocoa peat is one, it really adds to the lightness of the pot. Now, if I were to fill this pot up, are you all not able to hear me?
No, ma'am, we can hear you.
Okay. When you fill this pot up with soil, manure, and cocoa peat, what cocoa peat does, it absorbs moisture. So when it absorbs moisture, it ensures that this pot always has a little bit of moisture. So you can even, prevent watering every day. So this mix of these three helps in creating a lovely, media for this plant to grow in. Okay. So another thing about coco peat is that, of course, it's light. It holds a little bit of moisture. It also lets the easy drain off of water. So it creates those air spaces between, the soil and the manure. It creates a lot of air spaces. So it prevents, excessive moisture in being held up by, so the air spaces, it'll hold only the amount of moisture that you need, that the plants need, and it'll drain off everything else. So it's a lovely addition to your media. So coco peat, I'm sure many of you know about it already. This block is a 1 kg block. What we do is that we just put it into water, and it swells up, and it becomes powder. So whoever came up with this concept of compacting cocoa fiber into these coco peat blocks is a brilliant thing, because it's so easy to carry around. Every urban gardener can just pick this up and take it back home, rather than dragging sackfuls of soil and manure and sackfuls of coco peat to take it back home. So these three are pretty, are sort of really holistic and enough for your container garden to grow and thrive. Now, what about the plant? Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to just put a little bit of soil and manure into the pot, and I'm going to show you how to plant a plant. Give me a minute. Hi. So I'm going to use this pot here, okay? And I'm going to mix some soil. Okay, and I have some manure and coco peat that I'm mixing here. Even if you didn't have coco peat, that's not a problem, because suppose you can't get it, you can get it. It's a lovely additive to your. Uh, so I have a mix of soil, compost, and coco peat here, and I am going to plant something. Now, what do we plant? For a kitchen garden, there is so much that you can do, from your own kitchen. There's so much that you just go into your kitchen cabinet and just collect the seeds, or, some of the veggies as well. So here we have some methi seeds. Everybody has methi seeds, right? In their kitchen, because methi is used for different spices and gojjus and pickles and so many things, and different garam masalas all use methi. Now what you do is just sprinkle a few methi seeds. All right, so I guess someone was asking. So now what I have done is I have filled only half of this pot with soil, manure, and coco peat. And now I am, either I can use methi, or I can grow a sapling. Just quickly before I get to that part, I just want to show you other things that can easily be gathered from your kitchen. So here is chili, right? So we have our red chilies. Now, if you open it, there are ready dry seeds for you to put into your pot. You also have some jeera. Jeera can easily be grown, and the jeera greens are also used. You can also grow some mustard seeds. Okay, of course, Who can forget dhania, right? This is dhania or coriander. Again, can be easily just sprinkled in this, and you cover it up with soil, and you can grow coriander as well. We at our nursery have grown a few saplings of vegetables. So this is capsicum, but this is a yellow capsicum. Now it's very difficult to find yellow capsicum saplings. So what we did is we got some organic capsicums, we dried out the seeds, and now we have these amazing yellow capsicum plants, which once we plant it into bigger pots is going to start yielding some yellow capsicums. So we also took some dried chilies, we grew some chili saplings. We also have some tomato growing here as well. Now all of this can be easily grown with stuff that you have, in your fridge. You collect some. How do we collect tomato seeds? What you do is you cut a tomato, you scoop out the seeds, put it on a tissue paper, let it dry, and once it is dried completely, just drop that into your container garden, and that's how we can easily grow tomatoes. Other things that we can also grow is garlic. Garlic is such a delicious, plant to grow, because apart from garlic being as tasty as it is, what you um, need to do is you have to stick in this part of the pod right into the soil, and this is where the plant grows from. The same thing can be done with onion. You can take a whole onion and put it into the pot, and the onion shoots come out of here. Now onion shoots and garlic shoots are so delicious, like spring onions, right? So even the garlic shoots are used in salads. It's so tasty. It has this burst of flavor, and it's really something that will make your salad pretty happy, I'm sure. So we have all these things that we can get from our own kitchen. You can grow potatoes, you can grow ginger. If you have some fresh turmeric roots, you can grow turmeric as well. There's so much. You can, take some brinjals, dry the seeds, use brinjal, all your gourds, which is bitter gourd, bottle gourd, pumpkin. It's such a simple action of collecting the seeds, drying it, and putting it back into your garden for more plants. So being a kitchen gardener is so sustainable, because you don't need to rush out to buy seeds, or you don't need to rush out to buy containers, because all of it exists in our home. All you need is a bit of soil, manure, and maybe coco peat to be able to grow these things. So what I am going to do is I am going to plant this tomato plant into this pot. So I'm just going to get it out of this here. Okay. All right. And I will move the pot up to show you, but what I am effectively doing is just planting it. So all I have done is put this plant in to the soil. Okay, you see that the soil level is really low. But why we need to do this is that we need to make space for the plant. We can't plant the top, plant the plant right on the top. Okay, because it needs some amount of space for water to be held in and things like that. So once you have planted the plant, so I have my tomato plant here. I'm just going to go and top this up. All right. So top up the, the planter all the way to the top and water it. Now, when you water it, important thing to note is that the first time you finish planting, you have to ensure that the water drains out. The first time you're doing the watering after you've done the planting, ensure that water till the water drains out from the drainage hose, because then you know that water has reached every part of the pot. After that, from the second time that you water, which is probably the next day or the day after that, you just need to water enough so that water just goes to the roots of the plant. Don't over water it, okay? And don't also forget about watering, because the plant needs water. So you have to ensure that you're watering it enough that the plant is growing and thriving, okay? Once you start doing it you'll know that what is that effective amount of water that we should add. So before I miss this, we also grew some brinjal saplings from the seeds that we collected, from our own garden. So that's about setting up a garden. One thing I missed, which please forgive me for it, before you put in the soil and the manure, where you see the drainage holes, above the drainage holes, you have to put some jelly or sand, jelly and sand actually. So what happens is that when you put jelly and sand, you will be ensuring that the soil is not getting drained out with the water. Okay, so we need to add a drainage layer, which will be almost a little less than quarter of your pot. So the drainage layer will have the jelly on the pots, on the drainage holes like this, and we have to fill the jelly with some sand, and yeah, you can put tile pieces, you can put, you can also put some broken pots. There's so much that you can put to create. So we don't want soil to be right on the drainage hole. We want a layer of drainage so that when water drains out from the soil media, only water is flowing out from the drainage layer and through the drainage hole, rather than soil and manure and coco peat also draining out, because that means then our plant is getting lesser of these nutrients. So the drainage layer is very important. So we have our basics all together. We have our drainage layer, we have a pot, we have a drainage layer, we have a mix of soil, manure, and coco peat, and we have a plant. And we have to remember to water the plant until the water flows out from the drainage hole. So we have those three together. Now, how now your garden is set up. Now, how do you take care of your existing garden? So what we use or what we make here in our nursery is something called Jivamrita. Now, Jivamrita is a mix of native cow dung, urine, organic jaggery, and organic basin, and a little bit of local soil. This is all mixed together and fermented for 48 hours, and this is used to spray on the plants as well as given a little at the roots. If you are providing manure to your plants once a month, that's great. But what happens with manure is also that it gives a boost of nutrients one time to the plant. And over time, you have to wait for the next time to be able to manure your plant. So why we use Jivamrita along with mulch? Mulch is basically dry leaf matter. So once you have planted your plant, cover the soil with dry leaves, or you can even use coco peat. Okay, so what happens is that it prevents excessive evaporation. When it's very hot on a very hot summer day, you don't want your pot to lose too much of water. So this organic mulch, which is either dry leaves or coco peat, will help in preserving the soil moisture and preventing excess evaporation. But with the addition of Jivamrita either on the dry leaves or the coco peat, what happens is that it slowly degrades. It helps this organic matter to keep on degrading over time, and that means that so much of manure nutrition is going on breaking down slowly, and your plant is getting continuous nutrition supply over time. Okay, it's not that one dose of manure. It is that you add the mulch and you add the Jivamrita, and every day this leaf matter breaks down a little by little and is constantly producing all these nutrients that are great for the plant. So once you have set up your garden, do mulch your plants. And if you can locally find a source who's making Jivamrita, or you can make it at home yourself, if you have access to native or desi cow dung and urine, you can make it, prepare it at home, let it ferment and use it. So we do a spray, a foliar spray, so that at the leaf level as well, there's some that can get through to the leaf through the stomata, which is the air spaces that is under the leaf. So it's like eating really healthy food and getting great nutrition out of it, as opposed to taking syrup or a vitamin tablet and getting vitamins out of it. So your vitamin tablet is the spray that you do on the leaves, whereas your manure application and Jivamrita application at the root is the nutrients, the healthy food that you get the nutrients from over time. So that is Jivamrita. Now, so Jivamrita is great for the general health of the plant. It's also great for increasing the plant body and making it like this plant has been given a nice dose of Jivamrita recently, and now it's feeling so happy and full of life. But what happens is sometimes our plants don't flower and fruit. There could be a multiple reasons for it. In a container garden, the resources are a little limited, and therefore we have to help the plant a little bit. So what we then use is this bioenzyme. Okay, bioenzyme. This is a citrus bioenzyme. How we make the citrus bioenzyme is that we use citrus peels mixed with jaggery and water, and we ferment it for 21 days. And this citrus bioenzyme is really good for helping in flower and fruit production. So it is a very little quantity that we use, only 5 ml in 100 ml of water. So 1 liter of water, you use um, this, as a foliar spray and a little bit on the root application. So, people who have plants that haven't been blooming for years together has started blooming, literally overnight with the use of bioenzymes. There's so much good out of, fermentation of these citrus peels. So citrus peels are anywhere from, lemon peels or musambi peels, orange peels, all of that account as citrus peels. So bioenzyme spray is really good for your plants, to help in production of flowers and fruits and stuff. And we also use neem oil for pests. Now, if you're providing your plant with everything that it needs, which is good quality media and Jivamrita, bioenzyme, it should not have a pest attack, because unhealthy plants are the ones that are susceptible to pests. Okay, if just like us, right? We when we're unhealthy, we're not having good nutritious food. That's when we get affected by all diseases. The same thing with plants as well. So if your plants are healthy, they won't have a disease attack. But if your plants are unhealthy, what do? Neem oil. So neem oil is again available easily everywhere. You need to dilute around 10 ml in 1 liter of water and spray it on the plants. There's something else called 3G spray, which is green chili, ginger, and garlic. Okay, you can easily find the proportions online. You grind it in a mixie, you dilute it and spray it on the plants. So all those three, which is the chili and the ginger and garlic are kind of like irritants for the plant, and they also end up leaving. So you're not going to be really killing them as such, but they leave the plant, and it's a lot more healthier. So this is about how you can start and grow your own garden. There are different seasons for growing different vegetables. Greens are something that you can grow through the year. Your greens are methi, palak, dantu, chakota, arve, sabzige. All of these grow through the year, and they just yield in 1 month itself. So 1 month is, good enough. So you can plan your planting in such a way such that in 1 month's time you can harvest it, and then get something the next week as well. Tomatoes are really good to start. Uh, Tomatoes are also very, very easy, and there are almost 3 seasons in the year that you can grow tomatoes. Chilies you can grow through the year. Pudina is something that is very, very easy to grow. If you are a newbie to gardening and you don't know what plant to start with, then I would suggest growing pudina, because it's such a happy plant. It's so hardy, and it just keeps growing and it keeps flourishing, and you don't even have to do much about it. So if you want to sort of have that faith in yourself that okay, can I be a gardener? Start with mint or pudina. Again, it's so easy to grow it. All you need to do is you buy pudina from the market, right? You just remove the leaves from the stem, cut the stem, between the nodes, and just stick it into the soil. It produces roots, and very soon you see the plant is full of leaves and it's multiplied, and there are more plants as well. So pudina is also very easy. Gourds, almost all gourds take between 4 to 6 months to complete its life cycle. and they grow better in the summer months. So gourds are something. But of course, with gourds, you have to be able to have some space or some support because they are all creepers. So you have to give them support so that they can grow and creep over and grow and produce flowers and fruits and stuff. So yeah, I mean, almost all vegetables can be grown. Now for fruits, you need big drums if you don't have space in the ground. We have seen a lot of success in growing fruit trees like mango and chiku and pomegranate, lemon, all of that in big drums, and we've seen it yield and be very healthy and happy as well. So fruits can also be grown in containers, and herbs. So of course, our coriander, pudina, and all is what we grow. Commonly. But if you are into Italian cooking, or if you like to grow some aromatic herbs, herbs like basil, rosemary, thyme, oregano are also pretty easy to grow and less fussy plants. So it's good fun growing them. So yeah, this was all about kitchen gardening. I hope I have given you enough information so that you can get started on your gardening journey.